So once again, welcome to the Spark Design Award celebration.
Gabrielle.
And what we're doing tonight.
Hold my jacket.
I'm sorry, I should say that to you. My name is Clark Kellogg. I'm the director of Spark. It's my side gig. And I'm actually a professor in the School of Business at Berkeley, where I lead the creativity, innovation, and design practice. And if you can tell me what my job is, I'd appreciate that. More importantly is Peter Kugnicki sitting here. Peter, please stand up. The founder and CEO of Spark Awards. Spark is in its 12th year. 14th year. And on the posters in the back there, where we'll have food in a bit, you'll see all of the annual calls for entry. And as we were looking at these today, because I've been around for 14 years, and I thought, wow, it's starting to sound like a long time, and it's pretty neat. Tonight, what I think we will do is what designers kind of rarely get to do, which is talk to each other. So we're not going to be real formal about this. I'm going to play a reel, which is showcasing the winners tonight, and then we're going to stop that and we'll hear from some of the winners and the winning teams in the audience tonight, and then we'll have conversation. At some point, food's going to arrive. We'll have some food, and we can keep having this design conversation, which is trust me. It's a lot more interesting to talk to each other about design than to listen to me talk about design. How many winners do we have? Just stand up if you're in the audience tonight. Yeah, great. Mark stands up. Yeah. Okay, Ellen, good. Wonderful. So this is a great collection of really good designers who I'm sure would like to talk about their work as well as other things. So let me play this first. I will play this 11-minute film. It's going to talk a little bit about Spark and then a lot about the winning work and just run through the results of this year's judging. What I like about this word and the sound of this word is that it's not just a color. There's a little somberness to it. To me, the way that Peter had this edited is speaking to the yearning that the world has for to solve problems, to solve them in complex, sophisticated ways that are frequently beyond the imagination of the people who hire us to do that. And the demand for what we do is rising. The business model isn't quite corresponding to how we go about dispensing what we do. But I thought we'd spend a little time tonight hearing from the heads of some of the design teams here in the room, and maybe you could reflect on the nature of the collaboration on the team, the biggest issue you had to solve in creating the work you did, and in a self-reflective way, why is it so good? So I throw those challenges out, those questions out, just as a way to provoke some thoughtful responses. Now, the people that stood up earlier, now I want you to talk. So,
let's have you stand up once more.
Yeah, please. That would be great. All right. So now that I know who you are, and Jim, you're still standing. So let's just start with you. There we go. Why don't you give us a few minutes of reflection on those kinds of things? What is it about the collaboration that works? What was the hardest thing about the project? And why is it so good?
All right. I feel like I drank one too many of these to do that justice, but well, we're honored to win the two Spark Awards this year. I'm creative director of ID at Intuitive. Used to be Intuitive Surgical, now it's more than surgery, and so it's intuitive, and it reflects, I think, the main spirit of integrating technology with healthcare to create solutions that are more immediate, more useful, more effective. And I'd like to bring Rob up here as well. This is my partner in crime here.
And juror on Spark.
And juror on Spark, yeah, although not involved in the selection of our products, you were recused for that. So, I had started in the company in 2014 as the first industrial designer. And so this is a company that was already on its fourth generation of the surgical system, the Da Vinci surgical system. And for those of you that might not be familiar with it, it's essentially combining cutting-edge robotics and stereoscopic 3D vision delivered through a VR headset to deliver a live feed of two eyes through two scopes, a live video feed to the surgeon across the room, and from there they're able to operate through robotic masters. They're able to operate up to 3 robotic arms inside the patient at 10 times human vision. So everything is shrunk down basically, but the robotic system is able to mimic their motions precisely. And so if you think about it abstractly, I'm not going to speak on this too long, but if you think about it abstractly, we transported the surgeon inside the human body. And before industrial design arrived, the company was on its 4th generation of this technology. So they really developed the heart of what makes the system work. So the question for us and the big challenge was, how can we take that further? And I think that's something that we dug into right away, and we started small. I think in 2014 I was the first industrial designer. Now our entire design group has grown to over 70 people in the course of about 5 years. So the process there was not only how do we contribute, how do we make our systems easier to use and easier to understand and distill the complexity, but how do we build design culture, and how do we begin to grow and propagate the value of design in the company. And that's pretty much been our mission. And Rob is the first person I called when I knew this opportunity was here and we needed great designers.
Actually called you.
Oh, you called me? All right. Well, I said, come on down. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I read this morning that hospitals are beginning to treat people with the flu that's coming from Wuhan with robotic systems. So that's, I'll show you that later. Another winner today that's here. Now, we've done this before. Earlier this year, we were in the same panel, so I'm setting you up here. Ellen has done a lot of wonderful planning and ecological integrative planning in Chinese.
Thank you. I am here in San Francisco Bay Area. I thought I'll step up first because from what you talk about, you bring the surgeon into the human body. We do totally the other scale, right? We design parts of cities. So the winning project was the Shanghai Old Town, and you only saw the 4 diagrams. So the challenge was, there was this old town in Shanghai that fortunately in the rapid expansion, they did not rip out that part. Partially it was very expensive, it was very complex, there were a lot of people, cost a lot of money, historic preservation versus new development, politics, crime that's in there, fire risk. It's very complex. So the city built a new city across the river. You know, everybody think about Shanghai now is this really super high rise. We have 3 of them in the model over there. So what are we going to do with the old town? So that's the challenge that was put forward to us. So I remember when my colleagues in Shanghai tell us the complexity of the problem, you know, in this old town, there's some part of land already sold, so much money, what do you do? There are all these other problems. I said, what do you do? So we are in a totally different scale. Think about design problems. So that was the challenge. And then what I thought where design comes in is we came up with a very simple idea. Very simple idea, and it still guides us through the complexity. So we say, okay, what about, why don't we do this? It sounds very simple, but when you are presented a complex problem, it took us a long time to figure out. A simple solution is, let's just keep it low inside the old wall. The wall is not there anymore, it's just a loop road with a lot of traffic. Keep it low, and then keep it high on the outside. You make the experience very special when you go through that part. The whole Shanghai is just high-rise everywhere. So if you get in, you cross this wide road, all of a sudden you see more sky, it's lower, and then you know, there are other complexity within there, but the side make it higher. So it was a very simple idea, and still today still guides the problem. So in terms of collaboration, it's quite different because it's just not us designers. I have my teams here. You know, maybe you should come up too and say a few things, John and Athena. So it's not just us designers. We work with the local planners, we work with the government, we work with developers who already have land, or developers who are interested in getting the land parcels. In China, you don't get to work directly with the community, but you talk to people because they're not comfortable to do community input in that scale yet. They are more comfortable to show the plans and have people make comments online. So you have to work with them. So our whole collaboration process is a negotiation with all the stakeholders. You know, historic preservation people who want to keep it low. The government leadership need to come up with money. If you have to improve the infrastructure, build the parks and all that, what do you do? So it's a constant negotiation, and you need to just be very flexible, but hold on to your ideas. So it was not an easy process. Everything in China was very fast, but this project had gone on for like 3 years, which means very long. I mean, compared to San Francisco, that's nothing, right? Our Treasure Island was 8 years. Park Nasset was 5 years. Trans Space Center was, I think, 4 years or something. So anyway, you want to come up and share some of your thoughts on that as team members and senior designers? Come on. Come on.
Thanks, Ellen. I'm John, and I was very happy to work on this project. And I think it's, I've been to China quite a few times, and what I've seen there of the new development is not a lot like what we would think of, most of us would think of as really places we like around, say, San Francisco, which is a lot of people walking and human scale. And there's a lot of that in the Old Town, and I think what we tried to do was come up with compromises and do this negotiation where we could retain that human scale and retain the places that people loved and were living in, and still, be able to have the funds through adding some of these towers around the outside to able to upgrade the area and make it safer and make it actually more up to date, which people actually wanted who are living there as well.
Yeah, really good point. Another thing is, we said there is no community participation, but that's our role as professionals is speak for the unspoken voice there, advocate for people that live there, to give them the opportunity and what is good for them.
I appreciate your thought. I'm going to switch scale again now, going from small to big back to small. Mike, I'd like, if I could, invite you to come up. Mike runs all things 3D printing at HP. And I think it'd be interesting to hear your perspectives on these questions.
All right.
Thank you.
But to correct you, I don't run all things 3D printing. I just founded you. I just manage the design team. The 3D printing in Barcelona and in Vancouver, Washington. And I think, I thank you all for the award, by the way. Very gratified. The team's very gratified. That team in Barcelona was primarily responsible for the system, the award this year. And they're just thrilled. They love recognition, and this is an awesome recognition. But it's only I would say, another step in a multi-year, maybe decades-long journey that we're underway. HP's first step was, let's make 3D printers, and that was cool. Make parts out of plastic. But then what? Who wants to make parts out of plastic? Who wants to make them for what purpose and to what end? I think that the big pivot in this business happened about 1.5 years ago when the decision was made to undertake a mission of digital manufacturing and not 3D printing. 3D printing is a means, not an end. And that was a huge sea change for us in experience design in particular, because we had always been looking at the very beginning of the process, the motive behind making something, and how many, and under what conditions, and for what business model, all the way through to how can I guarantee that this part will be the same each time it's being made by that 3D printing system. And I think that the business realized the complexity of the problem, and we were a little unpopular for a while, maybe we still are, by saying this is not just about making a part of a 3D printer. This is about an end-to-end process, you guys. And the collaboration, though, was a great facilitator. So we have a digital design team and a physical design team, and they undertake, I guess I would call it, exposure to the technical people and the marketing people of what the user problem is and the customer problem is, and engage with them to help solve those problems, much like you were describing in your segment. Only through that do we actually make any real progress on anything at a system level. And so with the result that we've had so far, we're still far from perfect, but we can see where we need to go in order to become a provider of manufacturing equipment and manufacturing processes to real manufacturers out there in the world. So, thank you.
Thank you. We have some comments, also from HP 3D printing.
No,
I'm 2D printing.
2D printing.
Yes.
I'm getting everything wrong. I'm glad you guys are.
All right, so about 18 months ago, I'm standing in front of the CEO of HP. He's got on a beautiful $2,000, maybe $3,000 suit. Myself and 3 people were in front of him with a brand new toner prototype that has never been tested. We had no idea what was going to happen. And what he has to do is he has to try and inject toner into a new printer. Well, he takes it, he starts going in, puts a little force in, and head to toe, covered in toner. My 2 friends that were with me just go. My name is Rob Moser. I'm design director for, I always struggle to describe this because the internal name doesn't really make sense. But if you go into a Staples or an Office Depot, If you look at an HP printer, that's what my team does. What we won the award for this year here at Spark Awards was something called the Never Stop toner system, which basically instead of, on a laser printer, instead of pulling out a cartridge and putting a new one in, the cartridge is just a holder. So all you have to do is get the new toner inside the cartridge. The whole reason we did this is to cut down on waste, it's to cut down on all the different items that wind up not being able to be recycled in our full chain. So the question was, what's difficult? Raise your hands if you are excited about mono laser printers. Yeah. It's that way when I ask the question internally too. Reality is, we make a lot of them throughout the world. I mean, these things sell like crazy in emerging markets. So to try and make a real difference in how HP is impacting the environment, it's the right place to look. And we did phenomenal things, and it's one of the most eco-friendly products the company's ever made. So very proud of what the team managed to accomplish. So thank you.
I'd like to ask Dan Harding of Ripsaw to come up. And I'm not even going to try to describe this one and get it wrong. I'll let Dan do it, but it has to do with brains. How about that? Dan Harding, thank you.
Hi guys, my name's Dan, and the proper pronunciation is whipsaw, like a whip and a saw. That's the reciprocity that some of us have and try to achieve with our clients, the relationship between us and our clients, or between art and science, design and engineering. We always have this push-pull action that's so difficult. Anyway, now you know. So we won a lot of these Spark Awards, so thank you, Spark. We've won about 20 in the last 14 years, and you guys all deserve to be commended because the jury list that you just saw are the best of the best people in the field. I mean, in Silicon Valley here, we've got some of the best designers, architects, engineers that make really sound judgments about what they're looking at. So this year we won 2, and one of them that I'll talk about is for a company called Cerebell. Now, most people know what an EEG machine is, an electroencephalogram. You go to the hospital, if you're unlucky enough to be hooked up to one of these things. It takes about an hour to get hooked up. They're big, expensive, $100,000 machines typically. And you need these sensors, this conductive glue with the sensors is attached all around your head. And then a neurologist has to study you and for about 45 minutes, and then after that time, you see the little signals, the brain signals, to determine what your condition is. So we worked with a team of neurologists at Stanford because they felt like there was the potential of creating a mobile, portable electroencephalogram that could address this very acute problem that's typical in an emergency room, especially when people come in and they're unconscious. They might actually be having a seizure, but doctors don't know it because it takes too long to get hooked up to an EEG. You need the neurologist to be on staff. It might be 4 o'clock in the morning and there's no neurologist. So after studying the science, we realized that it wasn't possible to create a device that could be strapped on the head instantly when somebody comes in the ER. And it takes about 6 minutes now instead of 1 hour. What we created was the solution where these electrodes in a flexible band with a little side control unit. The device is actually disposable, but the challenges were so numerous to get through thick hair, to get the sensors to reach the scalp, to reduce the impedance so that the signal from the brain could reach the sensors that could reach the reader. Just solving these kinds of physical problems, material problems, and cost problems were paramount and quite difficult. And partway through that project, we realized that one of the really big problems to solve was how do we make sure that anyone in the ER or anyone in any hospital room could understand if a seizure was happening. Now, some of these seizures, again, they're happening when you're unconscious. And if you are seizing for up to 2 days, it can kill you. It's one of the causes of morbidity, and it's very confusing to medical teams about, like, why did that person die? Well, they don't realize that they're actually seizing, they're actually having a seizure, but there are no signs of it. If you don't have a neurologist, you don't know. So this team we worked with developed this algorithm where you can take those brainwave signals and turn them into, like through this special algorithm they developed, into sound waves, which means that we could now make a signature sound that represented a seizure, which meant that any nurse, any visitor in the room, if they heard this funny noise, and I'm not going to try it because it scares the heck out of you. It sounds a little bit like a anxious, crying toddler. And if you hear that, anyone can hear it at bedside when somebody is wearing this headband for several days. Then the nurse can come running and they can give you the kind of drugs and treatment to solve the problem. Anyway, it's now in every single Kaiser hospital. It's probably saved several lives today. And it was just one of those projects where it's like, you know, it's grueling, like a lot of us go through. You know, you have to solve these problems and you keep going and going, and you hit a wall, and then you come back and you try it again, and you do a lot of prototypes and experimenting, and you have to push the team and work with the team and work with patients and doctors. Anyway, it's really rewarding. And it's got FDA approval, and they're doing really, really well, of course, because it represents a whole new shift in a category. I think that's what most of us like to do. I've been designing for a while, and I can tell you that, like, the most satisfaction I've had as a designer when I can really see a benefit provided. We've helped people, we've moved the bar, we've changed something. Just changing for good, for the betterment, is just, it's so important to me personally, and I think most of us in the room, I think we can say that. You know, the world is so effed up in so many different ways, and it's easy to get sidetracked with pessimism on what's going on. But I think that, for me, design is just one of these things that is optimistic, it's full of hope and change, and there's a lot of goodness in it. And then lastly, I'll say, you know, I was coming up to this city today, and I saw this billboard. Some of you have seen it. I was driving up to the city here. It said, I think it was an ad for Verizon. It said, "More is less," which is, of course, play on Mises' less is more. And I thought, I was really pondering that the rest of the drive, and all day I was thinking about this. This is where we are in our society. Everybody wants more. They want to pay less. They want less impact on the environment. I think that little project right there, that 6-minute setup, this disposable, really quick, cool little setup, is kind of an example of this. More is less. And I think we got to be thinking about these kinds of things when we're designing. I think, well, let's have a discussion about that. That's kind of interesting. Yeah. Any questions about that? Because it's supposed to be a discussion.
Yes. Why disposable?
Mostly because this is in the hospital and it's touching a person. You have to have the electrodes with the conductive gel against the skull. So mostly to prevent the spread of pathogens within from hospital room to hospital room. We made it very, very minimal. There's just so little material in this thing. It's remarkable. And it's very inexpensive, the amount of material we used in some of it. It's ridiculously nothing, really. And especially when you compare it to an EEG machine, which is this enormous hunk of steel and plastic and lots of computers and boards. It just wasn't necessary. And I like that even though we didn't do the electrical engineering, we were able to cut through with getting to the essence of, like, okay, what do you really need in this thing? All we really need to do is make an alert, a signal that would allow someone to be saved. And everything else was noise, so to speak.
While we're on the medical theme, little of your perspective on the work you did. Explain what it was.
Sure. So moving in beyond the brain and the EEG space to the EKG world, which is where myself and my team have been working with a company called AliveCore for the last few years. And I want to say thanks, Barb, and my team for for the award and for the awesome work that my team has put in to make this happen. I will say I've been so excited since we started the studio to have gotten a few clients that are working in the space, in the medical technology space, a lot of really amazing startups that we're seeing coming out of Silicon Valley that are using technology for good. And we've been lucky to land a few great clients in that area, and I'm going to tell the story about AliveCore. AliveCore is working on heart health, and for those of you that don't know, heart disease is actually the #1 killer in America. It is causing more deaths than cancer by a multiple of 5 every year. So to be able to work on a technology and design that's not only making a great user experience, helping people to understand their bodies more, but also directly impacting saving people's lives has been incredible. So what this device does is it's an EKG device that kind of takes what used to be done in clinics where you have to put the stickers across the person's chest so that you can get a multi-angle view.
What I like about this work and this sound of this work is that it's not just a color. There's a little somberness to it. To me, the way that Peter had this edited is speaking to the yearning that the world has for to solve problems. To solve them in complex, sophisticated ways that are frequently beyond the imagination of the people who hire us to do that. And the demand for what we do is rising. The business model isn't quite corresponding to how we go about dispensing what we do. But I thought we'd spend a little time tonight hearing from the heads of some of the design teams here in the room. And maybe you could reflect on the nature of the collaboration on the team. The biggest issue you had to solve in creating the work you did. And in a self-reflective way, why is it so good? So I throw those challenges out, those questions out just as a way to provoke some thoughtful responses. Now, the people that stood up earlier, and now I want you to talk. So,
Let's have you stand up once more.
yeah, please. That would be great. All right. So now that I know who you are, and Jim, you're still standing. So let's just. There we are. Why don't you give us a few minutes of reflection on those kinds of things? What is it about the collaboration that works? What was the hardest thing about the project? And why is it so good?
All right. I feel like I drank one too many of these to do that justice, but well, we're honored to win the two Spark Awards this year. I'm creative director of ID at Intuitive. Used to be Intuitive Surgical. Now it's more than surgery, and so it's intuitive, and it reflects, I think, the main spirit of integrating technology with healthcare to create solutions that are more immediate, more useful, more effective. And I'd like to bring Rob up here as well. This is my partner in crime here.
And you're on Spark.
And your own Spark, yeah, although not involved in the selection of our products, you were recused for that. So, and I had started in the company in 2014 as the first industrial designer. And so this is a company that was already on its fourth generation of the surgical system, the Da Vinci surgical system. And for those of you that might not be familiar with it, it's essentially combining cutting-edge robotics and stereoscopic 3D vision delivered through a VR headset. to deliver a live feed of two eyes through two scopes, a live video feed to the surgeon across the room, and from there they're able to operate through robotic masters. They're able to operate up to 3 robotic arms inside the patient at 10 times human vision. So everything is shrunk down basically, but the robotic system is able to mimic their motions precisely. And so if you think about it abstractly, I'm not going to speak on this too long, but if you think about it abstractly, we transported the surgeon inside the human body. And before industrial design arrived, the company was on its 4th generation of this technology. So they really developed the heart of what makes this system work. So the question for us and the big challenge was, how can we take that further? And I think that's something that we dug into right away, and we started small. I think in 2014 I was the first industrial designer. Now our entire design group has grown to over 70 people in the course of about 5 years. So the process there was not only how do we contribute, how do we make our systems easier to use and easier to understand and distill the complexity, but how do we build design culture, and how do we begin to grow and propagate the value of design in the company. And that's pretty much been our mission. And Rob is the first person I called when I knew this opportunity was here and we needed great designers.
Actually called you.
Oh, you called me? All right, well, I said, come on down. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I read this morning that hospitals are beginning to treat people with the flu that's coming from Wuhan with robotic systems. So that's, I'll show you that later. Another winner today. It's here.
Into the human heart and the heart rhythms. We can now do that in a device that's about the size of a stick of gum, and you can carry it around in your pocket. You can use it anywhere you are in the world that's connected to the internet. It sends all the data up to the cloud so that a user can actually see and understand if they're having abnormal heart patterns, or AFib is one of the biggest things that they detect. And then that data can be transmitted to their doctor, so they can get that information no matter where they are without having the inconvenience of having to go into clinic, and they can get that from the very first instant they feel that something might be wrong with their heart. So not only was that a great experience to be a part of this technology that's really helping to save people's lives, but I really enjoyed the process because, as I said, our studio is pretty new. We've only been around for about 3 years now, so this is actually one of the first products that has been coming out of our team, and really through that process kind of helped us develop how we work with clients. So you wanted to hear the insight and the background into what that was like. And I will start out and say, after we developed the relationship with this client and we had gone through a few processes together, they said to me one day that coming to work at Level was like going to your secret Michelin star restaurant that you're not sure how many of your friends you want to tell about because you don't want it to get too crowded that you can't get a table there. And I was like, I don't know if that's supposed to be a compliment, but I think it is. And so, and that is, I think, a good description of our studio, because we were only a year or so in as a studio at that point, so we're pretty scrappy. It doesn't look so pretty on the outside of the door, but once you walk into that studio, you can feel the design presence. We cleaned it up on the inside. And you also feel the warmth, and we do like to work really closely and collaboratively with our clients, so we do call it, it's funny that he said it was a Michelin star restaurant, because we think of our creative lab as kind of an open kitchen in a restaurant. So we like to actually have our clients be really involved in the process. We take them into the sketch room so that they can see the work on the wall, laying out the tables of mock-ups, walking them through the thinking of the background behind the devices. with LiveCore and the Cardi Mobile that we launched in particular, we had tables full of mock-ups, and there was a lot of testing and usability because there are multiple electrodes. One has to go on your leg and the other's on your fingers. So you have to really think a lot about how to balance that and how to get a proper reading in order to get a 6-angle view into the heart, which is being able to see it from multiple angles. You actually have to run the electric current through your left leg at the same time that you're running that through your right and left thumb. So it's not an easy thing to tackle, and I think that's why the product ended up being so great in the end, is just having them in, going through all the iterations and the mock-ups, and really having that open conversation and dialogue like we like to do with our clients. And then also my team and our experience. I've worked for many consultancies, but also in corporations before, where I spent a ton of time in China and manufacturing. And so I think we really brought a lot of that thinking about how the product was made to the table as we were designing. So we worked really hard to reduce the number of parts so that we could create this plastic unibody with very minimal electrodes that you put your fingers on. But the build quality and what we learned from working on smartphones and working on consumer technology devices for years, we got to bring to the medical space. And I think that is what is amazing, because I started out my career working on medical products where there was often a lot of cost cutting and about reduction of design, kind of compromises along the way. This was a client that was very different, where they came to us because their team came from Google, and their VP of design had been very high level at Apple and Google before going to this startup. And so they knew how to actually execute good design and really make sure that the quality came through in the work. And that's not very typical in the medical clients that I had worked with in the past. I think because of that, and because of our understanding of beautiful design, beautiful, great experience in manufacturing, we really created a product that when you pick it up and touch it, it feels as beautiful as the smartphones and the beautiful technology devices that you touch and feel every day. But we were delivering this for a client in the medical space. And this is a product that it's different than medical products before. They're not things that you're just using in the doctor's office. You carry them around in your bag and in your pocket like you would a smartphone or your Apple Watch. So it really needs to set the bar high and be as good as what has existed in consumer devices and the products that you love and that you care about so much. So beyond just creating the device itself, we even created a little leather carry case that it comes in. And I think all of those elements tied together to really set it apart from what's existed in the space of heart health before. Kind of coming full circle. I'll tell you just a little story that at the time the product launched this past July. It's interesting because we write all these design awards and we create all this content about users and things that are very abstract from what we normally encounter, and talking about heart health and how many people in America suffer and die because of this. But the product launched in July, and at the end of July, my mom actually had an open heart surgery, followed by another one a few months later. So I saw what it was to have a user in front of me using the device that I design every day and talking to her cardiology team about that experience and seeing firsthand, in a way that I think most people don't get to do, to reflect on, not, I wanted to always to create products that make people's lives different and really have that impact. But to see that come full circle and actually get to design a product that's really helping my mom with her recovery, it's just like there's nothing better in the world than to be able to do that.
Okay. I love everything you talked about because it's right to what we do. And that was a beautiful way to end that story. There's food here. what I propose we do is have some of it, and then let's just have conversations, the smaller ones among yourselves. You met a few of the people here. You haven't met most of the people in the room, but go ahead and do that. This place should erupt now with some delightful conversations. And I'll just close my comments by saying that what struck me tonight is, scale. We work on minute things and big scale things. And in design, failure doesn't mean failure. Budget doesn't really mean a constraint. And when the client says no, it doesn't really mean no. And because I spent a lot of time in corporations as well as in the design world, and we think about this stuff really different. And it's you know it, but it's so qualitatively different that what always strikes me is that we don't always know what we know, because we live in this world of rampant possibility where anything we can come up with, we can usually figure out a way to make it happen. And that's just not the way that most businesses operate. It's a thrilling thing to hear these stories, knowing that